This video is based on publicly available reports, verified news sources, and named on-record sources. All statements reflect what has been reported, not confirmed conclusions. No individual is accused of any crime. The Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, has been officially cleared as possible suspects by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. That clearance stands and no agency has walked it back. 3 pages, 18 to 24 names, photographs, corresponding identification, all of it handed to a gun store owner in Tucson by a federal agent who walked through the front door of Armor Bearer Arms and asked one specific question. Had any of these people purchased a firearm from this store within the last year? Philip Martin, co-owner of Armor Bearer Arms, told Fox News exactly what happened when that FBI agent walked in. He told them he initially questioned the request. He told them he ultimately agreed to help out of concern for Nancy Guthrie's family. He said he entered each last name into his store's electronic records system. And he said, not one of the names on that 3-page list returned a match for firearm purchases within the past year. The agent told Martin that investigators planned to visit additional gun stores, that the list would be checked across Tucson's firearms retail network until either a match appeared or every store in the city had confirmed the same result. Sit with what that means. 18 to 24 specific people. Photographs attached. Names attached. A federal agent walking into a private business with a physical list and checking it against purchase records. That is not a broad dragnet. That is not a general canvas. That is targeted investigative work, the kind that happens when the FBI has already narrowed a field and is running down specific individuals against specific evidence. That list has never been made public. The identities of the people on it have never been confirmed. And the results of the visits to other gun stores in Tucson have never been officially disclosed. But the existence of that list, confirmed by a named gun store owner on the record to Fox News, is one of the most significant public disclosures in 84 days of this investigation. And it connects directly to what the doorbell footage has shown since the FBI released it on February 10. The masked man on Nancy Guthrie's porch at 1:47 a.m. on February 1, 2026 had a firearm holstered at his midsection. Holstered incorrectly, at his midsection, not at his hip. According to publicly available reporting, Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed that investigators were showing a picture of that holster to local gun shop owners to see if anyone recognized it or remembered selling it. Firearms expert Chris Gutowski told CNN that the holster appears to be a cheap fabric holster, not the kind carried by someone who regularly carries firearms. Not a tactical holster. Not professional grade. Soft fabric. The kind, according to Gutowski's publicly available analysis, that can be unsafe. A cheap fabric holster on a masked man who knew how to disable a doorbell camera, understood signal disruption technology, and executed a 41-minute operation without leaving chaos inside a house. That combination, professional operational planning paired with amateur firearm equipment, is a specific behavioral signature. And it is one the FBI was actively cross-referencing against purchase records across Tucson's gun stores. Now step back from the gun store and look at the full picture of what the investigation has been doing on the ground, because most of this has been reported in pieces, never assembled in one place. Day 7. Law enforcement arrived at Annie Guthrie's home on North Camino Escalante, approximately 4 miles from Nancy's home, and conducted a 3-hour search. According to CBS News, that search was voluntary. Both Annie Guthrie and her husband Tommaso Cioni allowed investigators inside without a warrant. Technicians entered wearing full protective equipment. According to Tracy Walder, a former federal operative who spoke to People magazine, investigators exited carrying brown collection bags designed to prevent contamination. Sealed. Logged into chain of custody. Loaded into vehicles. Not a conversation. Not a courtesy check. A 3-hour forensic sweep that produced sealed evidence bags. Day 12. They came back. No press release. No scheduled update. No explanation offered to the media. Detectives simply arrived at the same address, entered again with the owner's consent, and left. When reporters asked the Pima County Sheriff's Department about this second visit, the department said nothing. 2 separate forensic searches. Both voluntary. Both producing sealed evidence. Both conducted in silence. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer addressed this directly in her publicly available analysis. She pointed out that the absence of search warrants is itself significant, and that it points in a specific direction. Federal procedure is rigid. If investigators have probable cause that someone committed a crime, they get a judge to sign a warrant. They do not rely on consent. Defense attorneys thrive on attacking voluntary searches by claiming coercion. The decision to conduct consent-based searches, according to Coffin-Daffer's publicly available analysis, suggests the homeowners were not being treated as primary suspects at those stages. The Pima County Sheriff's Department officially confirmed this on February 16. Sheriff Chris Nanos issued a formal public statement. The Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, had been cleared as possible suspects. He said the family had been nothing but cooperative and gracious. He called them victims. He said publicly and directly that to suggest otherwise was not only wrong, it was cruel. That clearance stands. No agency has walked it back. But 2 forensic sweeps of Annie Guthrie's home, combined with 40 days of forensic examination of Tommaso Cioni's vehicle, combined with the FBI's list of 18 to 24 individuals being cross-referenced at gun stores across Tucson, paint a picture of an investigation that was simultaneously clearing the family and building a broader map of everyone connected to Nancy's world, everyone who might have had access to information about her routine, her schedule, her vulnerabilities. Not because the family was suspected, because the family was the closest circle to the victim, and in a targeted abduction, the closest circle is where the intelligence trail almost always begins. And the intelligence trail in this case has a specific date attached to it that the investigation has never fully explained publicly. January 11th. According to publicly available reporting, the FBI's own digital analysis established that something occurred at Nancy's address on January 11th, 3 weeks before she disappeared. Investigators asked neighbors specifically for footage from that date between 9 p.m. and midnight. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed publicly to a local Tucson station that the FBI's analysis had established something occurred on January 11th. He refused to describe what. The Guthrie family issued their own statement 2 days before Nanos spoke. They asked Tucson residents to search their memories around specific dates. They named January 31st. They named February 1st. And they named January 11th specifically. A family navigating an active federal kidnapping investigation does not flag a date 3 weeks before their mother disappeared without a reason. They have information that led them to that date. And that information, according to everything the public record has shown, suggests the person who was on that porch at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st had been there before. According to Fox News Digital, reporting through 2 sources with knowledge of the investigation, the doorbell images released by the FBI may not all be from the same night. One image reportedly shows the masked figure without the Ozark Trail backpack, without the holstered firearm, in different attire from the February 1st footage. The Pima County Sheriff's Department said the images carried no timestamps and called any conclusion about different dates speculative. But ABC News independently reported through unnamed law enforcement sources that the suspect may have visited Nancy's home on at least one prior occasion. 2 separate news organizations, 2 separate source networks, both pointing toward the same conclusion: the person on that porch had been there before. Which means the gun store list, 18 to 24 people with photographs and names, may include people the FBI identified not just from the February 1st footage, but from the January 11th analysis. People whose presence in the area during that earlier window placed them in the investigative frame. People whose firearm purchase history the FBI needed to cross-reference against the weapon visible in the holster on Nancy's porch. That is the investigative architecture the public record supports. Not speculation. Not theory. The documented, named source sequence of events that a gun store owner confirmed on camera to Fox News. Now, the walkie-talkie. This is the detail that most coverage has treated as a footnote. And it is not a footnote. The doorbell footage released by the FBI on February 10th shows something in the suspect's pants pocket with what appears to be an antenna. The public conversation around this object has focused primarily on the possibility that it was a Wi-Fi jammer, a signal disruption device used to take the neighborhood's cameras offline. Neighbors reported their internet service went down on the night of February 1st. The FBI went door to door asking about internet outages, a canvas that, according to publicly available reporting, did not happen until 34 days into the investigation. But retired Detective Bob Gilliam, who has closely followed this investigation and appeared on the interview room to discuss the evidence, offered a different analysis this week. He said he does not believe the device was a Wi-Fi jammer. His reasoning is specific. Wi-Fi jammers, he said, typically have multiple antennas. The object visible in the footage appears to have one. He does not believe it was a police scanner either, because a scanner requires headphones or audio output that would have been visible. His assessment, stated publicly and on the record, is that the object was a 2-way radio, a walkie-talkie. Former Homicide Sergeant John Lamb, also appearing on the same panel, agreed with that assessment, and both reached the same conclusion about what a walkie-talkie means in the context of this operation. It means someone else was listening. A walkie-talkie is point-to-point communication. You transmit to a specific receiver. The person on Nancy's porch at 1:47 a.m., if that object was a two-way radio, was in active communication with at least one other person during the operation. A lookout, a driver, a coordinator positioned somewhere in the neighborhood with line of sight on the approach routes, the neighboring properties, the traffic patterns. This directly challenges the one-suspect conclusion that retired FBI profiler Jim Clemente reached, based on the blood spatter evidence. Clemente's analysis, stated publicly and on the record, was that if there were two people, one of them would have maintained complete control of Nancy inside the house and she would not have ended up face down on the front stoop coughing blood. The blood evidence, in his assessment, suggests one person lost control of a situation that should have been controlled, not two. Both analyses are from credible named sources. Both are based on specific physical evidence. And they point in different directions. What they agree on is the preparation. Whether one person executed this operation or two, the planning was extensive, the reconnaissance was documented across multiple weeks, and the operational equipment was specific. A firearm. A 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack purchased exclusively at Walmart. A device with an antenna. Gloves. A mask. A flashlight held in the mouth rather than the hand. The FBI had a list of 18 to 24 people with photographs. They were checking gun stores across Tucson. They were cross-referencing holster purchases. They were reviewing footage from January 11th. They were building a map of every device that pinged towers in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood during the relevant windows. That is not a cold case. That is an investigation with a direction. One that was being built, methodically, quietly, across multiple parallel tracks, while the ransom narrative dominated the public conversation. And the ransom narrative has now officially collapsed. According to publicly available reporting, a California man named Colella has been indicted by a federal grand jury. His trial is set for June 23 at the federal courthouse in Tucson. He is not being charged in connection with the notes sent to TMZ. He is being charged in connection with notes sent directly to the Guthrie family, specifically 2 text messages sent to 2 family members on February 4, asking, "Did you get the 12 Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." Investigators established he was acting as an impersonator. Savannah Guthrie said publicly, before her return to the Today Show on April 6, that she believed 2 of the ransom notes were legitimate. That those 2 notes contained details that had never been made public. Specific placements of items inside the home. Damage to exterior fixtures. Verifiable information she believed could only have come from someone with actual access. Colella's indictment does not address those 2 notes. He is charged as an impersonator, not as someone with insider knowledge, but placed alongside former FBI agent Steve Moore's publicly stated assessment this week that the people sending ransom demands in this case were acting in bad faith from the very beginning, providing no proof of life, routing demands through media outlets rather than direct family channels, and disappearing without completing any transaction. The arrest does something critical to the broader ransom narrative. It confirms what the physical evidence always suggested. The ransom story was noise. And noise, in an investigation, serves a function. It pulls resources. Pulls attention. It pulls the public conversation away from the signal. The signal was always the physical evidence. The blood on the porch. The immaculate interior. The 2 timestamps that have never moved. The gun on the holster. The device with the antenna. The backpack. The flashlight in the mouth. And the hair sample that was sitting in a Florida private laboratory for 11 weeks while the FBI lab at Quantico waited. That hair sample is now at a specific laboratory. According to C.C. Moore's publicly available analysis, the sample is likely at the San Francisco Forensics Laboratory that helped convict Long Island serial killer Rex Hoyerman. That laboratory extracted DNA from rootless hair samples, the same type of evidence present in the Nancy Guthrie case, and produced a profile that contributed to a guilty plea in 8 murders spanning nearly 2 decades. Moore stated publicly, "Hair absolutely can make the case solvable. So I'm really excited." She said something else that deserves to be heard precisely. If they really do have a rootless hair and it is from that kidnapper, then this is going to be the piece of information that will solve the case. Not help the case. Solve it. Moore has personally helped law enforcement solve 6 cases using rootless hair alone. She knows what this evidence can and cannot do. And she is publicly saying, with her name and credentials attached, that if that hair belongs to the person who was on Nancy's porch at 1:47 a.m., the science exists right now to convert it into an identity. Here is the process. The laboratory extracts a DNA profile from the rootless hair shaft using mitochondrial DNA analysis, a technique the FBI laboratory at Quantico is specifically equipped to perform. That profile enters genealogy databases, Platforms like GeneMatch and Family Tree DNA, where people have voluntarily uploaded their DNA and consented to law enforcement access. The system searches for partial matches, a distant cousin, a second cousin twice removed, someone who shares even a small percentage of their DNA with the unknown contributor. That partial match begins building a family tree. The tree narrows. Names emerge. Those names get cross-referenced against the physical description: male, approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches, average build, black mustache, according to Jennifer Coffindaffer's publicly available analysis, significantly younger than 50. Against the cell tower data from the night of February 1st. Against the digital analysis from January 11th. And then those names get cross-referenced against something else. A list. 3 pages. 18 to 24 people. Photographs attached. The list the FBI was already carrying into gun stores across Tucson. 11 weeks. That is how long the hair sample sat in a private Florida laboratory, while the FBI lab waited. And a Pima County official, Dr. Hines, has now publicly stated what may explain that delay. He said publicly that Sheriff Chris Nanos held a personal grudge against the FBI dating back to 2015, when Nanos was nearly indicted on RICO charges. The charges were not pursued, but the relationship between Nanos and the Bureau was damaged. Dr. Hines stated publicly that it was very possible that Nanos' past run-ins with the FBI jeopardized elements of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer said the timeline was not tracking at all, that the Guthrie family should be upset, that the delay was inconsistent with how a case of this priority should be handled, and simultaneously, Nanos is now facing an oath hearing. The Pima County Board of Supervisors asked him to clarify statements made during a sworn deposition in a separate First Amendment lawsuit. The request followed concerns about whether statements made under oath were accurate. The sheriff leading the ground investigation is being asked to explain sworn testimony in a separate legal proceeding. The FBI, the agency that was waiting for the hair sample, is now running the laboratory analysis. The institutional dysfunction is documented. The accountability questions are on the public record. And the hair sample is where it should have been 11 weeks ago. Here is the complete picture at day 84. 3 pages of names and photographs, 18 to 24 individuals, cross-referenced against gun store purchase records across Tucson. A holster being shown to firearms retailers to see if anyone recognized it or remembered selling it. 2 forensic sweeps of Annie Guthrie's home. Voluntary, consent-based, producing sealed evidence bags. 40 days of forensic examination of Tommaso Cioni's vehicle. A device with an antenna visible in the suspect's pocket that at least 2 retired law enforcement professionals now publicly believe was a two-way radio, suggesting active communication with another person during the operation. A ransom narrative that collapsed publicly with the indictment of a California impersonator. A hair sample now at the San Francisco laboratory that solved Rex Hoyerman's case with rootless DNA. And a 30-year FBI veteran who publicly stated this week that if that hair belongs to the suspect, it will solve this case. One suspect or two. The debate between Clemente and Gilliam continues. But both agree on the preparation. Both agree on the planning. Both agree that whoever was on that porch at 1:47 a.m. knew that house, knew the routine, knew the cameras, and knew the exact window when Nancy would be alone. And both agree the evidence exists. It is in the record. It is in the laboratory. It is in the cell tower logs and the digital analysis and the sealed evidence bags that left Annie Guthrie's home in the hands of glove technicians across 2 separate searches. The gun store list had 18 to 24 names on it. The FBI was checking every one of them. That list is not theoretical. That list is a named gun store owner on camera, on the record, confirming to Fox News exactly what a federal agent asked him to do. The investigation was never looking in random directions. It was always building towards specific names. Her medication was on the counter. Her hearing aids were on the nightstand. Her phone was on the nightstand. Her car was in the garage. Everything that belonged to her life was exactly where she left it. She has not been seen since a Bluetooth signal dropped at 2:28 in the morning. Day 84. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She raised 3 children alone after losing her husband at 46. She built a life in Tucson for over 5 decades. She brought live music to a hospital. She was a 30-year churchgoer whose single missed Sunday service triggered everything that followed. She deserves an answer. And the evidence, the gun store list, the sealed evidence bags, the hair sample now at the right laboratory, the blood on the front stoop, the device with the antenna, the 2 timestamps that have never moved, is closer to delivering that answer than it has been at any point in 84 days. The ransom noise is gone. The laboratory has the evidence. And somewhere on a 3-page list that a federal agent carried into Armor Bearer Arms in Tucson, The name that matches the profile, the holster, the footsteps on that porch, and the hair strand in that San Francisco lab may already exist. Records do not vanish. Evidence does not expire. If you have any information, contact 1-800-CALL-FBI. tips.fbi.gov. Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. The combined reward is $1.2 million. Completely anonymous. Drop a comment. The FBI had a physical list of 18 to 24 people, with photographs, that they were checking at gun stores across Tucson. That detail has barely been covered. What do you think that list represents, and do you believe one of those names is the person who was on that porch? Tell us. We read every single one. And stay close, because the moment that San Francisco laboratory produces a result on that hair sample, this channel will break down exactly what it means, where it points, and what it does to every piece of evidence this investigation has been quietly building for 84 days. We will see you in the next one.